Never told, my grandma's shocking truth, how my Nora ruined her hair at midnight. It was the kind of night that wrapped the small town in an eerie, thick silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves, sending chills down your spine. Self-proclaimed hair magician, Nora had spent years perfecting her craft, leaving everyone in town with hair so dazzling it seemed to glow. But there was a secret that lurked in the shadows of her modest bungalow, one that erupted like a volcano when the clock struck 12. They whispered about it, you know, the kind of whispers that made your skin prick with goosebumps, the kind that told of dark rituals and midnight potions barely manageable by the human hand. Under the dim light of a single bulb, Nora concocted her brews with a flair known only to those who had chased shadows down the paths of the supernatural. Local stories spread like wildfire, raging stories about hair that turned to flames or colors never seen before. But one fateful night, driven by curiosity and desperation, she found herself reaching for a vial marked with a bold warning glowing green, filled with something that bubbled ominously. Could it be magic? Or madness? As midnight approached, the atmosphere grew heavier. You could almost hear the heartbeat of the house thumping like a war drum. Nora mixed the potion with trembling hands, anxiety twisting her stomach. She promised herself she'd only use it for good, but desperation has a way of dulling the lines between right and wrong. With each swirl, the room shimmered with an unholy glow, as if the very fabric of reality was being warped. Then came the shriek. One moment she was a confident artist, painting hair with strokes of genius. The next, chaos exploded around her. In a blink, the mirage turned to horror, transforming beautiful locks into a nightmare of twisted, singed strands that curled and smoked like burnt paper. The once prized secrets of her craft turned against her in a horrifying betrayal. What had she done? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the smoke cloud billowed into the air, Nora's heart raced with panic, regret gnawing at her insides. The townsfolk had gathered outside, murmuring in shock, faces reflecting both intrigue and terror. What had they witnessed? The line between myth and reality blurred, leaving everyone questioning the very essence of the woman they thought they knew. Nora's story, once one of triumph, now teetered on the brink of tragedy, a cliffhanger that hinted at darker secrets yet to unfold. As she stared at her reflection in the mirror, trembling from the shock, she couldn't help but wonder, could she ever undo what had been unleashed? Nora stumbled back from the mirror, her mind swirling with panic and disbelief. Her once fluid motions had become awkward, her hands trembling as if they were trying to shake off the specters of her actions. The reflection that stared back had become a grotesque parody of her former self. What had she done? Outside, the murmurs grew louder, and she could hear the townsfolk gasping and commenting amongst themselves. Did you see that glow? What is that smell? We need to go in. The door rattled, and Nora's heart raced with dread. No longer could she hide behind the curtain of her talents. She had exposed herself to them, revealing a dark side she never meant to share. Throwing a glance toward the now ruined strand sprawled across her workbench, she fought the rising tide of nausea. They looked alive, twitching and curling as if still caught in some wretched spell. The potion was never meant to end this way. Her hands were accustomed to beauty, not destruction. Desperation burned in her chest, and with it came a hint of regret that she had never felt before. She had wanted to push the boundaries of her art, to truly create magic, but had she crossed too far into a dangerous realm? The door suddenly burst open, and in rushed Clara, her closest friend and biggest supporter. The fear in Clara's eyes mirrored Nora's own as she took in the surreal chaos. Nora. What happened? Are you okay? Fingers twitching, Nora could only look down. I don't know. I tried something new, it's all gone wrong. The words felt foreign on her tongue, so heavy to admit. Clara stepped closer, lifting a piece of the scorched hair between them. "This doesn't look normal," she murmured, her voice trembling. "What did you use?" Nora hesitated, the vial's ominous glow still echoing in her mind. "A potion. It was supposed to add volume, make hair shine, but it twisted into something else." I think you might have summoned something," Clara said, glancing anxiously towards the door. "People are scared. It's like you've tapped into a well of magic that shouldn't be disturbed." Panic felt like ice in Nora's veins. "But I was only trying to help, to create." Clara's eyes softened, but her voice held firmness. "Sometimes, creating can lead to destruction. We need to undo this, Nora." The noise outside grew louder, waves of worried chatter rolling through the doorway. "What are we going to do?" Nora's voice barely rose above a whisper, fear gnawing at her insides like a wild animal. "A reverse potion?" Clara suggested, her brow furrowed as she thought frantically. "We need to find another vial, one that can contain this energy before it spreads." Nora's thoughts raced as she stood at the crossroads of desperation and determination. "But where?" "The others they won't understand the risk," Clara interjected. "They'll think you're a danger. We have to act fast before it gets out of control." Nora felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Get the potion, save her reputation, or confront whatever horror she had unleashed? Outside, the murmurs grew frantic, and she knew in that moment she didn't have a choice. If she couldn't reclaim her magic, would she have to confront its dark consequences? Suddenly, a surge of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the light from the single bulb. The darkness felt suffocating, pressing in on her like a vice, and Nora realized the true darkness was not just outside, but within herself. What began as an innocent quest for beauty had spiraled into a twisted nightmare. Nora grabbed Clara's hand, trembling but determined. "Then we'll fix this together." But as they prepared to step out into the waiting crowd, a sinister hiss echoed through the house, freezing them in place. "Get out while you can." What awaited them beyond the threshold? The line between beauty and horror had blurred far more than even she could have anticipated. As they exchanged terrified glances, Nora felt the weight of an impossible decision pressing down. Would they unlock a hidden force lurking in the shadows, or would they unleash something far worse? The door creaked open slowly, revealing the chaotic swirl of energy beyond. What had they conjured, and could they face the truth that awaited them? The door swung open, and the chill from the outside swept into the room, wrapping around Nora and Clara like icy fingers. A cacophony greeted them, gasps, whispers, and the frantic shuffling of feet. The townsfolk were gathered outside, their faces pale with fear and curiosity. Nora stole a glance back at her makeshift laboratory. It felt like a crime scene now, a space where beauty had curdled into something grotesque. She could feel their eyes on her, heavy as stones. What had she unleashed? "Just stay close," Clara whispered, squeezing Nora's hand. "We'll figure this out together." The reassurance in Clara's voice was a fragile yet necessary balm to Nora's fraying nerves. As they stepped out into the chaos, a young boy broke free from the crowd, his wide eyes reflecting the aura of dread that hung in the air. "What did you do?" he shouted, his voice high-pitched and trembling. Nora felt the gaze of the crowd shift, their collective attention pinning her like a nailed butterfly. "It's not what you think," she called back, her heart pounding in her chest. Then why does it smell like burnt hair?" Another voice cut through, sharper than the rest. The question hung in the air, thick with accusation. Clara took a step forward, her presence grounding. "She made a mistake. We're trying to fix it." But the murmurs only grew louder. They didn't care about explanations. Fear clouded their judgment, turning friends into judges. Nora's stomach churned, the heat of shame flushing her cheeks. Suddenly, a howl of wind rushed past them, and a flicker of shadow darted through the crowd. Gasps erupted as the townsfolk backed away. Clara frowned, looking around. What was that? Nora's heart raced. The shadows seemed to pulse with energy, dark and malevolent. "I don't know," she breathed, senses heightened as they searched for its source. A woman in the crowd, her voice trembling, stepped forward. "It's coming from you." Her finger pointed at Nora, accusingly. "You brought this into our town." "No. I never meant for any of this to happen." Panic clawed at Nora as she desperately scanned the faces turned toward her, faces that once held admiration but now were tainted by terror. With a rumble like thunder, the wind spiraled around them again, swirling as the shadow grew thicker. It formed into a shape, dark and twisting, and for a moment, Nora could almost see eyes glimmering in its depths. The crowd shrieked, scrambling backwards in a frenzy. "Stay back!" Clara shouted, trying to shield Nora. But the figure lurked closer, its form tightening and expanding like a living shadow. It felt alive, an entity wrought from Nora's mistakes, a manifestation of her chaotic magic. Then came the voice whispering, seductive, chilling. "You opened the door to the unseen, Nora. Do you truly think you can close it again?" Nora felt the world tremble around her, her breath hitching in her throat. No, a sharp pang of terror gripped her. "I can fix this. I will try." The shadow laughed, a sound that echoed through the very marrow of her bones. "The hourglass runs low, child. Your time is running out." Nora's knees felt weak, tremors threatening to pull her down. Clara's grip tightened, a silent plea passing between them. But as the crowd skittered back, caught between horror and the need to flee, Nora knew she had to act. With newfound resolve flooding her veins, she made a decision. "We'll confront it," she shouted, even as the horror loomed closer. Together. The connection between them snapped the moment they took their stance, and the townsfolk's eyes widened in disbelief. Did they dare to hope? But then, the shadow surged, lunging toward them with blinding speed. "You unleashed me, and now you must pay." Every instinct screamed for Nora to run. But as she stood her ground, the air thick with uncertainty, she felt a flicker of something, a reminder of her true self. If she was to recover the beauty, she would have to face the horror. Could they stand against this darkness, or had they already gone too far? The swirling chaos reached a fever pitch, and Nora's heart thundered in her chest. What would be revealed in the face of her own creation? With one deep breath, she prepared for the inevitable, and within the shadows, the truth beckoned her forward. The shadow lunged, a living nightmare spilling into the crowd like a spilled ink pot. Nora's heart raced as she gripped Clara's hand tighter. "We can't back down," she shouted over the roar, the words tumbling from her lips in sheer desperation. The whispers transformed into screams, an echo of confusion and terror winding through the town square. Faces contorted in horror. Children cried, and parents shielded their eyes as if they could block away the darkness that now seeped into their very bones. Nora stepped forward, steeling herself against the encroaching blackness, the weight of her failure pressing down on her chest like a stone. "I'm the one you want," she yelled, voice steadying. "This is my fault. Please, listen to me." The figure paused, a moment of hesitation, and in that brief silence, hope flickered in the heart of the crowd. Clara cast a quick glance at Nora, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and unwavering support. "Don't let it take you," she cried, the connection between them palpable. "We need to fight back." But the shadow pulsed, growing heavier, the air thick with dread. "Fight back?" The voice hissed, dripping with disdain. "You think you stand a chance against the darkness you've summoned? You know nothing of true power." A shiver ran through Nora's spine. She took a deep breath, her mind racing. Research. Experimentation. Everything she had done had been in pursuit of control, but now control seemed like a cruel joke fabricated by the very chaos she had unleashed. "What do you want?" she shouted defiantly, desperately seeking clarity amid the storm. "I can't want to let you hurt anyone. Your fear offers me strength." The shadow roared, its form twisting in excitement. "Your turmoil feeds the madness." Nora's vision blurred for a moment as a chilling wave of energy engulfed her, leaving her breathless as images of her past flashed through her mind, moments of doubt, anguish, and loss. The heaviness of her decisions bore down upon her, and she staggered, fighting the torrent of despair that threatened to sweep her away. Clara stepped forward, pushing her way through the crowd, her voice fierce and unwavering. "Stay strong, Nora. You've come too far to let it win." An ember of resolve lit within Nora. "You're right," she shouted, clenching her fists. "You're not in control of me. I will end this." Gathering every ounce of strength, Nora closed her eyes. She recalled the incantations she had studied, the magic that had initially drawn her in. A warmth flared inside her, mingling with the growing dread. She focused, willing it outwards, determined to reclaim the beauty buried beneath the chaos. "Light, return," she commanded, feeling energy surge forth, matching the despair with her own power. The shadow recoiled, a splintering cry of anger slicing through the air. It surged towards her, wild with rage, clawing at the edges of her consciousness as if trying to pull her into its depths. "Foolish girl!" it shrieked, and the ground vibrated with its wrath. Nora pushed back, relentless. "You don't own me." She could feel the energy responding, swirling, becoming a shield against the storm. The townspeople watched, wrapped with a mixture of fear, hope, and disbelief. They huddled together, some gripping one another, their breath stilled as the spectacle unfolded. "Clara, feel it with me," Nora called, and they locked eyes, their connection grounding. Clara nodded, her voice strong as she chanted alongside Nora, building a tide of light against the abyss. But even as hope flickered brighter, the shadow clawed back with ferocity, a final desperate lunge aimed at Nora's heart. Just as the darkness leapt toward them, there was a blinding flash, a moment of clarity followed by silence. Everything froze. The world seemed to hold its breath, and then the shadow belched a shadowy wail that echoed through the square, rattling windows, and the ground beneath them trembled ominously. Nora's heart dropped as the reality of their gamble hung uncertain in the air. Was this the moment they reclaimed their town, or had they awakened something far worse? A crack opened in the void, swirling with tendrils of shadow darkness calling forth more darkness. "Now you're in trouble," it whispered, its hunger palpable. Nora's breath quickened. What other horrors had she yet to face? In the distance, the sky began to darken, reflecting the unfolding nightmare. What had she truly unleashed, and would they survive the reckoning that was about to unfold? Nora's heart thundered in her chest. The crack in the void pulsed and expanded, the air around them charged with a menacing energy. Every instinct screamed at her to flee. The townspeople were frozen in a tableau of fear, their faces pale as they witnessed the darkness widening like an open maw. "Clara, hold on tight. We can't let it take us," Nora shouted, her voice breaking through the suffocating silence. But Clara's grip was weak, her fingers trembling as she faced the expanding chaos. Suddenly, the shadow surged forward, a violent wave of blackness that swept through the square. Its claws reached for Clara, hungry and merciless. Nora sprang forward, instinct kicking in. "No!" she screamed, pushing Clara behind her, drawing on the flickering light still coursing through her veins. "You will not touch her." The shadow hesitated, an agonizing wail echoing through the night as it retracted for a split second. It felt her courage, and for the first time, doubt washed over the inky figure. "Your defiance, it's irritating." The voice twisted and rippled like smoke, trailing off with a low growl. "I'll show you what real power is," Nora shouted, her voice steady and defiant. She focused, feeling the warmth in her hands. It was a spark of light struggling against the darkness, but it was alive. The incantation danced just out of reach in her mind, but clarity began to form. "Clara, chant with me," Nora commanded, her eyes locking onto her friend, igniting the strength in their bond. They began to speak the words she had studied, their voices lifting like a battle cry into the dark. As they chanted, Nora felt the light surge forth, bright and responsive. Bright golden rays broke through the encroaching shadow, battling the dark's advance. The air crackled, electricity sparking as the very fabric of reality seemed to bend and twist with the sheer force of their combined will. The shadow screamed, a cacophony of rage and desperation. "You cannot defeat me. I feed on your fears." It shrieked, twisting and contorting with fury, the darkness swirling around like a storm. But the light was pushing back, a radiant wave dissolving the clutches of shadow inch by inch. Nora was losing control. The energy was too much. A vision flared, an image of her family, of the lives she had touched, the love that had defined her spirit. But at that moment, the dark voice wormed again into her head, a slippery whisper, taunting her broken memories, the doubts she had buried. "You're just a girl. You've never been strong enough." A pang of guilt cut through her. She thought of her past failures, of everyone who had counted on her. It gnawed at her resolve. Wouldn't it be easier to submit, to let go of the burden? No. She screamed, forcing herself to focus. "I am not afraid. I choose love over fear." The words rang out strong, a powerful declaration that resonated over the rupture of shadows. The energy surged again, pushing the darkness back toward the crack it had emerged from, but an unseen force lashed out, a tendril sharper than glass slicing through the air, and Nora felt the sting of pain as it wrapped around her leg. She stumbled, eyes widening in terror. Clara reached out, but her voice was drowned by the roaring wind of the shadow's rage. "Stay with me, Nora," Clara cried, her desperation fueling Nora's fight. Determined, Nora called forth everything she had, gathered from the very essence of her spirit, and wrenched against the pull of the dark. "Light, return to me," she bellowed, each word a lifeline to hold on to. The air crackled anew, and with every ounce of will, the light exploded from Nora, erupting in a dazzling display. The darkness screamed, clawing desperately at the light, but it was no match for the love and determination threaded between the two girls. Then she saw it, a flicker of sunlight, breaking through the storm of chaos. But the crack still widened behind it, and the shadow was not done yet. "Beware, Nora," it hissed, churning with a feral rage. "This is only the beginning. Darkness calls its kin." Nora's breath quickened. What had she truly awakened? The very ground beneath her felt alive, shaking as if sensing an impending storm beyond the one they were fighting. "What is out there?" she whispered to herself, dread creeping into her heart, and as if answering, from the swirling shadows came another figure, a shape far larger than the last, looming and powerful, emerging from the darkness behind the crack. Nora's stomach dropped. What else was lurking just beyond the veil? And could she muster enough light to confront it? Nora's eyes widened as the new shadow slithered forth, a towering behemoth that stretched beyond her imagination. An oppressive weight settled in her chest. The air thickened with despair, as if the weight of the world had decided to settle on her shoulders. Clara's terrified gasp cut through the mounting tension. "Nora, what do we do?" Clara's voice trembled, barely cutting through the ominous silence surrounded by the whispers of the shadowy shapes. Nora swallowed hard, grappling with her fear. There was no time for doubt. "We fight. We have to light our way through." She reached for Clara's hand, squeezing it tightly, feeling the warmth of her bond against the icy fear creeping in around them. With resolve, they began to chant again, their words weaving an invisible shield against the engulfing darkness. The ground trembled beneath them, each pulse resonating like a heartbeat. The massive shadow towered over them, streaks of its blackness curling like smoke, surrounding the edges of their light. "Your feeble spark cannot handle the darkness that seeks to consume you," bellowed a voice that felt like an icy wind, cold and biting. "No," Nora shouted back, fueled by her growing anger. "We are stronger together." She drew on every ounce of light she could muster, guiding Clara to follow suit. They poured themselves into the incantations, voices intertwining into the night like a magical tapestry. Golden light erupted from their hands, illuminating the clearing with fierce brilliance. The tendrils of shadow recoiled, hissing like 1,000 serpents disturbed, but the larger shadow remained undeterred. It stood colossally, leering down at them, eyes glinting like pinpricks of despair. "Know this, girls," it taunted, "the darkness does not perish easily. It multiplies. My kin are rising as we speak." Nora's heart raced. The thought of more shadows creeping through the crack sent icy tendrils of panic racing up her spine. "I won't let that happen," she exclaimed, her voice ringing with defiance even as the ground beneath their feet trembled alarmingly. The shadow laughed, a rumbling sound that echoed off the buildings around them. "You think you can stop what is already in motion? Your courage will be your end. With a swift motion, the giant shadow lashed out, tendrils of darkness sweeping through the air like a storm. Nora threw herself in front of Clara, feeling the sharp sting of pain as a tendril whipped across her back. Pain exploded in her body, but she wouldn't give in. "Stay back," she yelled, forcing her voice above the tumult. "Clara, we have to combine our light." Nora's vision blurred at the edges, the pain pulsing like a drumbeat. But Clara was there, steadying her, and as their energies braided together, a shining core of warmth began to form. "Together!" Clara shouted, mirroring Nora's determination. Bright beams began to spiral from them, pulling against the monstrous dark force that loomed over them. But still, the darkness surged, it twisted and turned, trying to break through their combined force. Then came the soul-chilling howl, reverberating through the square like a death knell, solidifying the enormity of their task before them. Just when Nora thought they could hold it back, they both noticed something terrifying. The crack behind the shadow pulsed again, wider than before. "More are coming," Nora breathed, dread pooling in her gut. "We need to seal the crack." "What? How?" Clara's eyes flared with panic, but they settled on the glow from their hands, embodying the light of hope. Nora's mind raced. But before she could voice her thoughts, the emerging silhouette from the crack expanded, a surge of energy pulling the surrounding shadows closer, feeding on their fear. It felt alive, grotesquely pulsing, a grotesque beast that thrummed with anticipation. "Together we have to try," Nora shouted, her voice barely above the approaching din. "Okay." Clara nodded, determination etched on her face. Both girls summoned all of their light, the radiant energy enveloping them like a shield. As they focused their combined strength, they felt a crackle in the air, an electric urgency drawing upon their deepest connections. But just as they gathered their resolve, the darkness lunged at them, a wave that threatened to sweep them away entirely. The crack behind it grew wider, pulsing with ominous energy, and then a shattering sound erupted, the crack splintering open like glass. Something massive reached through, skittering into the still chaos, and Nora's heart dropped. What was that? The darkness swept forward, and she braced for impact, fear coursing through her body. Would they survive the onslaught, or was this the end of everything they had fought for? Nora squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the worst. The air was thick with whispers, a chorus of despair that wrapped around her like chains. She could feel Clara's hand gripping hers, their combined warmth a fragile barrier against the chilling darkness. The crack had widened, releasing the essence of terror that could drown them in an endless night. That a sudden rush of movement yanked her back to reality. From the splintered crack emerged not one, but several shapes. Chasing after each other like ravenous wolves, mouths agape, they lunged toward Nora and Clara. The monstrous figures flickered in and out of focus, shadows that shifted and writhed, colored by a darkness so deep it seemed to swallow the faintest glimmers of light. "Focus, Clara. We're stronger than this," Nora yelled, forcing herself to chant louder. Their golden light sizzled in the air, but it felt insufficient, like small candles flickering in a hurricane. The voices of the encroaching darkness echoed, mocking their light, whispering doubts that clawed at the corners of her mind. "Look!" Clara pointed, her voice shaky but urgent. "They're feeding off our fear. We have to stay brave." In that moment of clarity, something clicked in Nora's heart. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were standing against an ancient evil that thrived on hopelessness. For every flicker of fear, the shadows grew bolder. "Together, Clara. We can do this." She shouted again, this time with newfound fire. The energy between them crackled violently, illuminating the clearing in pulsating bursts of gold and white. With every chant they verbalized, it felt as if they were weaving a net around the darkness, tightening it just enough to slow its advance. The massive shadow hung above them, still watching with its malevolent eyes, but now uncertainty hung over it. Nora's voice soared, her words resonating with every ounce of willpower she could summon. "You are not our fate. We choose light. We choose hope." As they directed their energy towards sealing the crack, a burst of blinding light surged upward, crackling like fireworks in the summer sky. The shadows flinched, recoiling as their interference broke through. It was an exhilarating rush, a reminder that their bond could shatter the overwhelming dread, but just as hope surged, a deafening roar erupted from the depths of the crack. The monstrous silhouette belched forth another wave of darkness, rippling as the shadows thickened and surged forward, venous tendrils reaching desperately toward the girls. Nora's heart raced. We can't let them get close. We need to push harder. She felt the familiar sting of fear trying to reclaim her mind, but the adrenaline and Clara's steady presence fueled her resolve. As they continued to chant, a brilliant spear of light shot directly into the crack, igniting the shadows as it struck. They shrieked, a cacophony of anguished wails, but it wasn't enough. The darkness fought back, a living entity that twisted and snarled, wrapping both girls in its grip. Hold on. Don't let go. Clara cried, but her voice was almost swallowed by the cacophony. The ground shook, and tendrils snaked around their ankles like constrictors, pulling them down. Nora gasped, the shadows pulling her into an abyss of despair. But just as she thought she would succumb, her mind replayed their earlier moments, the warmth of Clara's hand, the strength in their shared words. With a deep breath, she pushed back against the cold tendrils, eyes brightened with determination. We are stronger than you think. With one final surge, they joined forces one last time, gathering all their energy and shouting in unison. The crack pulsated violently. The shadows shrieked, a sound that vibrated through her bones. And then, in a blinding flash, Nora felt something break. The overwhelming weight of darkness shattered like glass, but with triumph came a new terror, as the ground beneath them cracked open once more, revealing a hidden chamber below. The jagged edges yawned wide, and a dark presence loomed within, whispering secrets that made her blood run cold. What awaited them in the dark below? Was it merely more shadows or something far worse? Nora's heart thudded painfully against her ribcage as she and Clara teetered at the edge of the newly formed chasm. The darkness within it seemed alive, pulsating and swirling, beckoning them with an ominous gravity. A chill swept through the air, biting at their skin, and whispered doubts curling in their ears louder than ever before. What do we do now? Clara's voice trembled, the golden light between them flickering dangerously. It felt like the shadows were drinking in her uncertainty, morphing into something even more malevolent. Nora peered into the abyss, her breath hitching. She could sense movement below, something writhing just out of sight. We can't leave it like this. Whatever that is down there, it'll come for us. It was a truth she didn't want to accept but couldn't ignore. And then, a voice, hushed and sinister, slithered up from the depths. Nora, Clara, it called, a low, eerie whisper that sent goosebumps racing down their arms. You've done well to come this far. But do you really think you can fight against what has been awakened? Nora took a step back, the words curling around her mind like smoke. Who are you? She shouted, her voice echoing back from the darkness. The presence shifted, and from the shadows emerged a figure tangled and broken, as if stitched together from darkness itself. Its features were obscured, but the glint of sharp eyes pierced through the inky blackness. I am the one who has waited, the one who thrives on fear and despair. You have fed me well, it hissed, its voice like cracking glass, sending a shiver up her spine. Get back! Clara shouted, stepping protectively in front of Nora. We will not give in to you. But doubt gnawed at Nora. What they faced was a manifestation of their deepest fears. Clara, she managed, feeling her resolve waver as the shadows around them pulsed in rhythm with her uncertainty. Fight it, Nora. Clara urged, squeezing her hand tighter. Remember what we've built. Nora's mind flooded with memories, moments of joy and strength entwined with the warmth of Clara's light. It surged within her, battling the chill creeping in from the edges of the crack. You can't take us. We harness hope and light. With a newfound vigor, they each raised their free hand, channeling every ounce of their energy. Golden light erupted from them like an incandescent sun, aiming directly at the figure lurking below. The shadows recoiled, screeching in pain, and for a moment, the darkness flickered and waned, but then, the figure laughed, low and rumbling, shaking the ground beneath them. You think light can conquer me? I am eternal. I have fed on generations of despair. You are mere mortals, and mortals can be broken. As the laughter filled the air, a deeper darkness rushed up from the cracks, seeking to swallow their light whole. Nora's heart sank. They had to act fast. "Clara, we need to push through. We can't let it feed on our fear." Just as she prepared to speak again, the entity lunged upwards, tendrils reaching for Clara, wrapping around her with suffocating ferocity. "No!" Nora screamed, letting go of Clara's hand only for an instant, a mistake she felt in her very soul. Clara fought back against the shadows, her voice rising amidst the chaos. "Nora. We're connected. Don't lose hope." Nora closed her eyes, drowning in a fear so potent it made her stomach twist. But Clara's voice echoed, resonating like a heartbeat. Together, they mustered their strength, and with every ounce of will, they pushed back against the darkness, light breaking out in brilliant arcs. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, but this time, it felt like a warning. A stronger fissure appeared near the edges of the chasm, fragments of earth tumbling into that abyss, a trap lying in wait. Would they really be able to escape? A crack threatened to deepen, making the very ground beneath them unstable. Time was running out, the shattering darkness howled, a desperate cry for their resistance, even as the barrier of light shimmered around them. Just as the crack gaped wider, a slow realization crept in deep within that dark void. Was something pulsing, something far beyond their comprehension. What was waiting down there, and could they survive long enough to find out? Nora's mind raced as the ground quaked beneath her feet, every tremor echoing her growing panic. Clara's light pulsed bravely beside her, but doubt gnawed at Nora like the shadows looming at the chasm's edge. "We can't hold this forever," she cried, glancing over at Clara, whose determination had started to flicker. "Focus, Nora!" Clara shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. The dark entity hissed, tendrils thrashing, eager to drag Clara deeper into despair. "Don't look down. Remember why we fight." Images surged in Nora's mind. Her grandmother's warm smile, memories of laughter shared over hot cocoa, the sweet smell of freshly baked cookies wafting through their family home. And then, the dark whispers returned, curling around her heart like ice. "Your grandmother, her secrets have shaped you, and now, they will destroy you," the figure taunted, this time with a voice that sounded hauntingly familiar. "Shut up." Nora snapped, trying to drown out the shadow's venomous words. But fear began to seep into her very core. What secret? What truth? Clara's light flickered, brightening just enough to reveal the edges of their adversary, a being woven from their fears. It loomed larger, its malevolence growing with every second, and Nora felt her grip on the light slipping. "Clara!" she screamed, just as the ground beneath them groaned and cracked wide, a gaping abyss now separating them. Clara was barely able to keep her balance as fragments of earth crumbled into the darkness below. "I want to let go," Clara shouted back, desperation slicing through the dust-filled air. "But you need to fight, Nora. Remember what you learned. Trust in the light we've created." Fingers trembling, Nora closed her eyes. Hot tears trickled down her cheeks, mixing with fear and anger. She envisioned the warmth of her grandmother's love enveloping her, and suddenly, whispers of reassurance broke through the dark. "You are stronger than you know." With a deep breath, she opened her eyes. What had been darkness transformed as she drew the light from her memories. "We're not afraid," she declared, unleashing a wave of golden brilliance from her core, the energy merging with Clara's trembling glow. The light exploded, illuminating the chasm with a radiant glow. The dark entity recoiled, shrieking in fury. The ground bucked beneath their feet, but Nora held Clara's gaze, gripping her hand with every shred of strength. Together. Just then, a blinding flash burst forth from the depths, a startling contrast against the shadows. It drew back, and they caught sight of something writhing just beyond the edge. Pulse after pulse radiated from it, a heartbeat that resonated deep within Nora's chest. She felt hope flicker anew, but then caught sight of what was trapped within the darkness, the manifestation of all their fears. "It's feeding. It's feeding on us," Clara realized, horror etching into her features. Before either could react, the darkness thrashed violently as if in a final desperate attempt to break free. The chasm widened, opening its gaping maw, the darkness rushing in like a tidal wave. Nora's breath was labored as she felt the pull of despair beckon her. Clara! But before she could finish, the figure lunged at full force, its tendrils extending for both of them. Fear surged back. No! Clara screamed, as she twisted away, desperate to escape the clutches of shadow. The light they had summoned flickered, and darkness loomed, snuffing out the warmth around them. With adrenaline surging through her veins, Nora hollered and dove forward into the luminosity, reaching for Clara with one arm while the other thrust out in defiance against the night. We will not be conquered. In that moment, the air crackled with intensity as they unified their energies. Would it be enough to confront the truth that lay beyond the abyss? As they pressed forward, a gleam of something bright glowed from the very heart of the chasm, but would it lead to liberation or despair? Nora's heart raced. She could almost taste at the edge of a revelation, dark and potent. One thing was clear. They were on the precipice of something unimaginable. What would they discover in that churning void, and would it be a chance at survival or their ultimate demise? Nora's chest tightened as the darkness surged toward them, a mass of whispers and shadows hungry for fear. She clutched Clara's hand, their connection anchoring her in the chaos. We have to focus. Remember what we are fighting for. Standing at the edge of the chasm, they faced the black void teeming with darkness. Clara nodded, eyes fierce. We want to let it win. We control this. With every ounce of courage they could muster, they raised their voices in unison, reciting the incantation that had become their beacon of hope. Light shot from their hands like an invisible thread, tethering them to everything they loved: family, friends, and the very essence of self-worth. But the darkness retaliated, swirling violently and spitting shadows like angry serpents. A piercing scream echoed as Nora sensed the dark figure rushing back, ready to lash out again. Hold on, Clara! As the shadow attacked, the energy around them pulsed violently. They clung fast, summoning the memories of warmth and laughter they cherished, everything that reminded them of their strength. Light, fight back! Clara shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Nora closed her eyes, drawing on every moment of kindness she'd ever received, breathing in the light of her grandmother's love. We are stronger than you think, she cried, determination propelling them forward. The combined power surged through them, and the shadows screeched in palpable pain. It felt as if the darkness was being pulled, unraveling stitch by stitch with the intensity of their will. The echo of their chant reverberated, clarity cutting through fear. They could feel the pulse of their bond, a bond crafted through each trial they faced. Suddenly, the crack in the earth opened wider, a mouth made of despair threatening to swallow them whole. But Nora didn't retreat. We aren't afraid of you. We choose hope over fear. The shadows hesitated, as if caught off guard by their defiance. An electric shift crackled in the air. Just then, something unexpected emerged. Flickers of light shone from inside the chasm. Not just light, but memories, snapshots of joy and love swirling alongside them like iridescent butterflies. Could it be? The light that they thought was extinguished was still alive, fighting against everything the darkness had claimed. Clara, it's still there, Nora exclaimed. We just need to connect with it. As they channeled every shred of warmth into their voices, the shadows repelled against it, struggling against their unity. The pulse of light grew stronger, the chasm narrowing ever so slightly. But the deep voice growled, You think you can contain me? I have fed on despair for ages. You will not stop me. No. You're wrong, Clara shouted, resolve underlying her words. We create our own fate. It's time to end this. With one final rallying cry, they poured everything they had left into the light. An explosion of brilliance erupted, engulfing the darkness. A warmth across their skin sent shivers down Nora's spine. The shadow howled, tremors coursing through the ground as it fidgeted under the pressure of their light. The dark silhouette began to splinter, cracking like ice underfoot. The air shimmered, weaving bright and dark into an ethereal dance, and with one last resonant chant, they shouted, Fear is not our path. Love is our strength. In that blinding moment of clarity, the shadows collapsed inward, folding in on themselves like a dying flame. Gasps echoed above them. The townsfolk stood transfixed, eyes wide with awe and fear. Nora breathed heavily, her heart racing as silence enveloped the square. As the last remnants of darkness faded away into nothingness, the ground stabilized, the chasm stitched back into the earth. Nora turned to Clara, their hands still entwined. A wave of relief rushed over her, consuming the remnants of fear lingering in her soul. "We did it, we really did it." Tears of joy filled Clara's eyes, and the townsfolk erupted, cheers and claps filling the night sky, joy mingling with disbelief. The fear melted away into understanding as they witnessed the triumph of hope, love, and friendship. Nora stepped forward, heart pounding as she looked into the faces that had once been so filled with fear. "I didn't mean to frighten you. I lost control, but I've learned something important. We can't run from our shadows but must face them together." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd, and as they nodded, she felt a weight lift. Their collective strength had brought about this change, and they were not just witnesses, they were willing participants in what would come next. With a proud smile, Clara added, "Let us move forward, together. Share our stories, our struggles, and our light. We'll build something beautiful from the ashes." Nora wrapped her arms around Clara, and the town surged forward, enveloping them in a warm embrace. Their hearts were full, whispers of love and support echoing all around. In that moment, she realized the shadows could come, but light would always return. As the darkness evaporated into the night, their spirits soared. They could hear laughter in the distance, the vibrant hum of community returning, stronger than before. They had faced their fears, and together, they would continue to rise. Now was the time to reconnect and rebuild. This story has come to its end, but yours is just getting started. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories about this ending, or maybe your own stories of how you faced the shadows in your life. I want to hear from you, and please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.